Welcome everybody to episode number 4 of this playlist where we are talking about writing tests for React applications. So in this episode, I have decided to talk about using mocks and spies. Not only this episode, but also the next episode, episode number 5, will be about using mocks and spies and how they can help us to test the behavior that we expect from our components. So let's talk a little bit about the concept of mocks and spies, and then I'm going to show you how you can actually set up some spies and some mocks and use them in your tests. So a mock, or a dependency that has been mocked, basically means that you are invoking not the real dependency or not the real, for example, function, but a fake version, a mocked version of that dependency. And the advantage of having a mock is that you can control the behavior of that mocked dependency. That helps you to write the test, the unit test in isolation, meaning that you can focus that unit test on verifying the behavior that you are testing without relying on the behavior of the dependency that is being mocked. Because as I said, you are in full control of that dependency that you are mocking. You tell that dependency, what to do when it is invoked, and that helps you to isolate your test. Test isolation is a very important concept, to isolate your test and only focus on the single unit you are testing through that, unit test. And a spy is another concept. Basically, using a spies on function calls, you can check whether those functions are called or not, how many times they're called, and with what arguments, and so on. So basically, if you want to verify the invocation of a function that you have, you can create a spy on that function and then verify your expected behavior through that spy object. So that spy object, as I told you, gives you access to useful information. For example, how many times that function that you are interested in has been called, with what arguments it has been called, whether it has been called or not, right? Now I am going to, create a scenario, a real scenario in our application to put these concepts into practice. First off, I'm going to create a utility function. So I'm going to create this utility function, as you can see, inside of this folder, right? And this utility function basically is taking in an employee, and then it is concatenating the employee name and the role, and it is putting that role inside a pair of parentheses, as you can see. So it is a very simple utility function that takes in an employee and returns the name of that employee next to the role of that employee. And it is going to be created inside of this file. So let me take you to my code base. I'm going to create a new branch, by the way. I'm going to call it episode 4. And then inside of the src, I'm going to create a folder called utils. And here I'm going to create a file called employee_utils.ts. And then I'm going to write that code that I just showed you. So it is going to be, as I said, a simple function that takes in an employee and then returns the name of that employee next to its role. So this is the first, utility function that we have created. Now the next, thing that we want to do is to use this utility function inside of our employee list component. So if you take a look here, let me show you. In employee list, we are showing the name of each employee, right? And then we are putting a dash here, the role, and then the department inside of the parentheses, right? Right now, I want to change this. I want to change this behavior and use that utility function that we created. We're going to call that get employee display name on each employee, as you can see here, and then we are rendering the output here. So let me take you to my code now, and then I am going to remove this unordered list element, and I'm going to write the new version. So this new version is going to use that function, get employee display name, the utility function that we created, which is something that we need to import, by the way. So I'm going to import this as well. So we are, using that utility function. The next thing that I want to do is to create a unit test for this utility function. Take a look at the test. First, we're going to create this file. We are going to import this utility function. We're going to create a describe block, and then we're going to create the test, right? So basically, as you can see, I have created a simple employee object, and then when I call this function on that object, I expect the output to be the name of the employee and the role of that employee inside parentheses. The same thing that that function is supposed to return. So let's implement this. So let's create the file inside of the utils, right? We're going to create this folder, tests, next to this utils folder. We're going to create this, and then we're going to have a file called employee utils test.ts. Now let's write the code for this utility function. So as I told you, we are going to import. Afterwards, we're going to create a describe block, and then we are going to say, given this single employee object, when that get employee display name is called on it, we expect the return value to be the name of that employee and the role of that employee inside of parentheses. So let me run the tests up to this point and verify if everything is working correctly. So they are getting executed. We have, I know what the problem is. Using this utility function in our, component actually broke one of our previous tests inside of employee list test, right? So if I take you to, let's say, employee list test, previously this test is verifying that the output of the employees are like this. I mean, the name of the employee, the role separated by dash, and then the department. But right now we have changed this behavior. So we kind of need to rewrite or refactor these, these tests here. So for example, for this guy, what I expect is to get something like this in the output, right? And for this one, what I expect is to get this in the output. So this will be the, new way the names and the roles of employees are going to be rendered. Let me run this one more time to see if we have any failing tests here. Yeah, it is coming from app_test.tsx. So basically the same thing needs to be adjusted here, right? It says add employee and display in the list. Initial employee visible should be like this. So the name of the employee and the role of the employee. And then when we, fill out the forms, right? And when we click that add employee, we expect Charlie with manager role to be displayed on our component. So let me clear things here and run the test one more time. Now we have our tests here. So all of them passed. On our notes, if you take a look here, I have already pointed out these. So I have said that, based on the changes we have made to the component, we now need to refactor our, test code in order to accommodate for these changes as well. So these are some of the things that I, changed before even talking about the note, like for example, this one, right? And the same thing goes for the employee list test file. So this gives us a very important lesson. Whenever you need to make a change to your production code, more often than not, it is not going to happen all the time. You need to refactor your test code as well. So your test code, very similar to your production code, needs to be maintained, needs to be refactored. And with, changing some production code, sometimes your tests are going to break, and then you need to, attend to them, you need to maintain them, you need to refactor them. Of course, there are so many techniques that you can use in order to write tests that are robust, that are not so brittle. So tests that do not break easily whenever you make a change to the production code. There are so many different techniques. Probably, you might know about them, but I will probably create separate, lessons for those different techniques as well. But the point is that whenever you've got some test code, bear in mind that your test code needs to be maintained like production code. Whenever you change something in the production code, more often than not, it means that you need to adjust the test code as well. So we ran the tests, right? We're not finished with the spies, with mocks, so we are just, getting started. In the next video, I'm going to show you how to actually write mocks and, spies on the different functions that you have, like, for example, the utility function, and then control their behavior. So let's wrap up this video here, and let's continue in the next one.